Reclaimed, a podcast that dares to ask the question, is there a better way to live this chapter of our lives? A few years ago now, early in my midlife chapter, I experienced a life-changing burnout. A burnout that made me question my career as a psychologist, my relationships, but also the culture in which I live in, which celebrated or seemed to celebrate this busy hustle culture. So this catapulted me into a midlife course correction, and something that I continue to be on a journey on in terms of reclaiming and creating my midlife. And I'd love you to join in with me. Here we'll question the life-draining systems that exist in our society, and we will open up to our vulnerability with open hearts to find real lasting change. I will open up and share some of my vulnerability, as well as guests who choose to do the same, but also share practical wisdom from my profession, but also from other professions to help guide you with the wisdom needed to explore this chapter of your life and create it the way that you need to. I believe midlife is an opportunity to look in, to discover what is truly satisfying, fulfilling for you, and making those changes along the way. So if you're ready to call out what's broken, connect to your vulnerability like it's a superpower, and reclaim what is truly authentic for you, then you're in the right place. This is Midlife Reclaimed. Let's challenge the status quo, shape a better future for this chapter in our lives, one brave, courageous step at a time. Engaging in this podcast does not intend to create, nor does it create, a therapist and client relationship between you and myself. All the wisdom shared by myself or the guests is general in nature and not intended for your personal circumstances. As I have done for myself, I encourage those who are in distress to seek professional support. If you are in a life-threatening situation, please call your national emergency services. And if you're in need of urgent counselling, please contact any available national telephone services in your nation, or see your doctor as soon as possible. Stay safe, and please remember that you do not need to do this alone. Hey there, welcome to Midlife Reclaimed podcast, if this is your first time, or welcome back. I am Shannon Swales, your host, and also today's guest. So this is a solo episode, and this episode we're focusing on burnout. Well, of course, but focusing on our relationship with burnout. Now, this might be sounding a little bit what? And maybe something you've never actually considered. However, in the work that we do, well, I do as a psychologist working in the burnout space, is often helping people with their relationship with burnout. And the reason being is that that actually does affect our recovery and also preventing burnout from returning. Because there's a lot of things going on, often unconsciously, but sometimes consciously, in terms of how we're relating to burnout. So in today's episode, we're going to look at some of those relationships that are not quite great that we have with burnout, like relationships that see it as something to fear, something to fix or get rid of, but we'll explore that a little bit further. And that might be a lot of you. It was certainly part of me as well in my burnout experience. But we're going to look at how to cultivate a relationship with burnout that will help you prevent and also grow and recover from burnout. So grab your cuppa, or if you're on the treadmill or on your way to work, whatever you're doing in terms of tuning into this podcast, just make yourself comfortable, sit in and engage. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the episode. Take care of you. Let's start by exploring the story, the relationship around burnout that is unhelpful, that does impact negatively on our recovery and particularly growth and prevention from burnout. So this often is a relationship that is experience like what you will notice is that in terms of your feelings towards burnout, you may feel a mixture of all of these or one or two, but there might be, and I notice this in practice with my clients, feelings of panic or anxiety or fear around burnout. There also can be feelings of shame, like somehow I'm bad, I'm awful, I'm a failure, those kinds of thoughts that lead to the feeling of shame. There also can be feelings of guilt, like that can be driven by thoughts of I've let myself down, I've let my partner down, I've let my kids down, I've let my clients down, whatever it might be. So we can have feelings of guilt associated with our burnout. We can also be quite angry or frustrated or annoyed or even disappointed. I know that one, I felt that in my chest. Disappointment was certainly something I had towards my experience of burnout. So, paying attention to your feelings can help you really understand this relationship, this story that you have around burnout. And I want to say that this isn't, to say that this in itself is something bad, that you have an unhealthy relationship with burnout. It's just something to pay attention to, and there's a way forward with it. So we bring a mindful attitude towards this relationship we currently have with burnout. So what that means is we are curious rather than judgmental. And we are present with it rather than avoiding or trying to get rid of it. We notice it, we pay attention to it. So far we're paying attention to the feelings you have towards burnout, and I've named quite a few there. But also, I started to allude to we have certain thoughts, certain stories and beliefs in our mind about what it means to be burnt out. Like there might be those stories of I've failed, I am weak, I have let people down, I am not good enough. There's so many stories. It could be that this is something that I must and should avoid at all costs. And of course, we want to, no doubt. But these narratives, again, these thoughts, these beliefs that we hold, sometimes we're aware of them. And I'm pointing up here that we're thinking them consciously, but sometimes they're deeper down and often through the process of therapy. Certainly, therapy really helps, but also self-reflection, really sometimes journaling to really understand those deep unconscious thoughts and beliefs that we have around burnout, or tuning into this podcast as you are and reflecting on your own experience. So paying attention to those thoughts and beliefs are really important around burnout. And again, being curious, not judgmental, and being present with that, really sitting and noticing and naming and writing down. But also there is body signs as well, like, well, not signs, like our relationship with burnout and these narratives, it can also show up in how our body reacts when we're experiencing burnout. Like I mentioned before, those feelings of fear or anxiety or panic around burnout. So we can notice that our body, the central nervous system, we're a bit more anxious and tense. So our muscles might tighten, shortness of breath. We might have racing thoughts and very hard to like we might be pushed around by our thoughts, and it's almost like a tennis game in there, and it's just going a million miles an hour. So our body also alludes to our relationship with burnout as well. And for a lot of my clients who find they're in a quite fearful relationship with their burnout, they notice this real sort of hypervigilance to noticing the signs and symptoms of burnout, and a push and an urge to get rid of or fix immediately or avoid, which is understandable when anxiety, fear, or panic are at play, because these are the emotions that when they're driving us, I mean, they're in the lead, they're going to push us towards either fleeing the scene, so in this case, fleeing the burnout symptoms, or they're going to fight that push through, or sometimes even flop and fawn. It's sort of like just giving in and sort of resigning. And I do hear a little bit of that as well out there, where people just accept that burnout is something that is part of their industry sometimes. So yeah. So paying attention to the body will also help you understand that relationship you currently have with burnout, your story, your narrative. Hey, just a quick break to let you know I've created a free resource called Journaling Your Way Beyond Burnout. It's designed to help you reconnect with yourself, reflect on what truly matters, and includes gentle guidance on how to get the most out of your journaling to support your health and well-being. To receive this gift, all you need to do is join my mailing list, a little burnout care in your inbox. You'll get updates on new podcast episodes, blog posts, helpful resources and services, and personal reflections from me. If that sounds like something you'd find helpful, head to www.burnoutspsychologysupport.com/subscribe, or just check the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. I want to share with you now just a little bit from a book I finished just this year, and it's by Dr. Dina Glouberman, The Joy of Burnout, How the End of the World Can Be a New Beginning. I feel like her book really has inspired this episode too, of the whole concept of reframing burnout, developing a helpful relationship to be able to move forward and grow from it. So I just wanted to read a few passages here from her book, and it's in the first chapter as well. And this section is called The Message of Burnout. So a few things I've highlighted here. So the message of this book is that burnout is the state of mind, body, and spirit reached by those of us who have come to the end of a particular road but haven't acknowledged this. Burnout is, or rather it can be, a door to walk through into a life with space, love, and joy. Indeed, a sense of being able to be one's true self. In fact, burnout is a sign that we have already begun to know something about our true self that we are not quite ready to tell ourselves. Burnout is the result of having become better able to hear our soul, but not yet daring to listen. Burnout demands that we listen. Now, I'm very mindful about that rain and do apologize if that is impacting your listening experience at the moment, but maybe some nature surrounds is really beautiful for you at the moment too. I'm going to reframe it in that way. What I feel like Dr. Dina Glouberman's book really helps us with is this idea of being able to shift our perspective, reframe that burnout from something like an illness, a medical condition, which I'm not saying it's obviously not impactful to our physical and mental and spiritual well-being and social well-being and health. But that when we see it as this teacher, which I feel like those passages really speak to me, and we really slow down and listen to burnout, not fear her, not feel shamed by the experience, but see it as an awakening that there's a part of us, and as she says, our soul, our spirit knows that where we're at is not where we need to be, and is calling us to listen, to make the shifts, to bring us into our true selves, to bring into our lives connection, love, joy, and many other things. And I feel like, at least for me, and I invite you to explore this yourself, that that is a more empowering space to be able to do the work of recovery and growth from burnout. It also helps that good old threat system that is activated in that unhealthy relationship with burnout, where we're fearful, panic, or angry, or shameful, or guilt-ridden, that often demotivates or pushes us in a way that overworks our already overworked central nervous system when we're already burnt out. So I invite you just for a little bit to, with everything you've just heard from myself and from Dr. Goldman's book that I shared with you, what your current relationship is with burnout and how that might be or could be impacting your ability to recover and grow from it. Now we're going to take a look at a strategy that can help this transition from an unhealthy relationship with burnout to reframing it to something more healthy, a bit like what we were talking about with Dr. Goldman's look at burnout as that sort of teacher and doorway. Now, the reason why we need a strategy is because it's not easy, or we can't just switch from one to the other. As we strengthen our new perception and perspective on burnout, the old relationship is still going to be there. Those feelings are going to come up, the thoughts, the beliefs, and those urges to, or even act in certain ways towards the burnout. So it is important to have strategies to be able to shift. Now, this strategy I'm going to particularly focus attention on today comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, which also stands for accept, choose, take action. Now, I'm not going to get into ACT. It was actually something we explored recently in an episode with Dr. Debbie Sorensen, who wrote the book Act with Burnout. I really recommend checking out her episode to get more of a well-rounded understanding of ACT and how it helps with burnout. But we're going to look at the skill of acceptance, which is one of the skills that are important to, in this area of reframing burnout, is important to cultivate. So acceptance is a bit like how it sounds. It's bringing an acceptance towards burnout. But not often when I introduce this to clients, they think, oh, so I've just got to like it. I've just got to accept it. I've just got to resign to it, that kind of feeling or thought. And almost like a sluggish kind of like, oh, I've just got to put up with it. Not that kind of acceptance. When we unpack acceptance, there is 4 A's to think about. So we've got the first A of acceptance is we acknowledge. So we first acknowledge our burnout, and we can go in as much detail about it. We can acknowledge the feelings, and we can acknowledge the thoughts. We can acknowledge the behavioral patterns or the environment and the culture and the systems that are contributing to our burnout. We can even acknowledge the current unhealthy relationship we have with burnout. So and sometimes how I like to visually share these 4 A's too. So imagine burnout is knocking at your door, knock, knock. Hello, burnout, unwelcome guest. But it's the kind of guest, maybe a bit like a family member or friend you can't not invite in. But anyway, that you let in. So we first acknowledge, hey, burnout, come through the door. The second A is allow. So that coming through the door, we make space for it, not because we want it, not because we love it or like it, but because it's here anyway. And there is no off switch. We can't switch this off. It's not going to go away by doing that. There's no magic button, unfortunately. I've tried. Many people have tried. But we allow in. So we've got 2 A's already with acceptance. So what we mean is we acknowledge, hey, burnout, come through. We allow, hey, come make space, let them sit on your couch, wherever they're comfortable, wherever they're showing up right now. The third A, and this is a really important one. I mean, they're all important, but we accommodate. Accommodation can look like many things and often end up being a lot of the therapeutic tools that, as a psychologist in the burnout space, would help teach people, but also maybe things that you've learned as well. So we might accommodate burnout by resting. We might accommodate burnout by taking long nature walks. We might accommodate burnout by getting some help in to take off some of the load. We might accommodate burnout by going to therapy and getting some help to learn some new skills. We might accommodate burnout by doing some mindfulness. So, as you're probably starting to see, acceptance is not a resignation. It's not just going, oh, okay, yep, you're here. And then, sitting in the corner of your house, just going, oh, I wish this guy would just leave. It's really actively going, hey, burnout, come in. I mean, you don't have to be all jovial about it, but come in, take up space. Hey, and accommodate in ways that help support the burnout, not in growing, but in supporting in what it's telling you or needing you to do. Because remember what Dr. Goldman talked about is it's usually ourselves knowing that something isn't okay and we're needing to shift and change. So when we accommodate and when we're allowing, we're really making space to listen to this person, really get to know the burnout and what it might need to be able to leave, be able to take up less presence in your life. So hopefully that's making sense. The fourth A, and this might take some time, I often say that to my clients, is appreciation. So it's almost like I think of another ACT therapist, Dr. Russ Harris, going to some of his trainings and reading his books. He often talked about finding the treasure in pain, which, at the time when I first heard that, I was like, what? What? There's no treasure in pain. I certainly didn't think so with my own pains. There has been multiple. But since I have certainly noticed, and with my work with other people, that people do sometimes come to a point of appreciation of their burnout. Like for me, the appreciation has been that whilst it was excruciatingly painful and upended my life, I am very grateful it upended my life because now I have a life that is more aligned with my true self. And I mean, I'm still working on it, but certainly more aligned. So I have that appreciation. Now, the appreciation I do want to say is not something to be forced. It often comes through those other steps of acceptance that you acknowledge, you allow, you accommodate, you make room for it, you learn, you listen, you support through those actions. Yeah. So that is acceptance that I wanted to introduce. So the reason this is really helpful to shift from that unhealthy to healthy is because, and you may have seen this already, if we're bringing that ACT strategy of acceptance, which is really kind of an active attitude and action towards it, that there's not room for fear or guilt or shame in that. I mean, again, that unhealthy relationship, that narrative and that response is still going to be there. And we want to bring acceptance to that. That could be another guy knocking on the door going, here's hating burnout, or here's seeing burnout as a failure. Like that can be, and we can welcome that in too, and we can accommodate, but in a way that helps us, be able to step back from it. Anyway, these things are certainly not easy to do, and I highly recommend to work with a trained therapist like myself, who can help you with these steps. But it's just to give you food for thought at this point in time of the importance of this. I just want to share a couple of things that I've noted here that I feel is really important and sums up this section is that when we respond to burnout with shame and fear, it equals struggle. When we respond to burnout with acceptance, these 4 A's, we transform this pain. It is from this place that we can act, a place where our nervous system, because there's not that elevation because of that shame or fear. So from this place, from a more calm nervous system, our thinking brain, which when the nervous system is regulated, can think more clearly. So yeah, because a calm mind thinks differently, is often better shape to respond effectively. And the other thing I want to share with you is fighting burnout. So that shame and fear relationship with burnout is like being caught in quicksand. The more we struggle, the more we fear it, shame it, be disappointed, feel guilt, the more you attach to that narrative, that relationship, the deeper we sink and we will drown. Acceptance is like pausing, it's letting go of that struggle. It's not engaging with that fear or shame narrative. It's pausing and allowing yourself to float for a moment, to accommodate, to allow, to acknowledge, so clarity can return and you can take action to get out of that. Maybe yell for help. um, yeah, I've worked with a lot of incredible people, caregivers, volunteers, parents, professionals who've all come to me or spoke to me about their burnout experience. And for all of them, burnout was, and maybe not at the time that they were speaking to me, but came to learn that burnout was their body and mind and spirit's way of telling them that something needs to change, that something's no longer working here. But often, especially if coming to me as a client in that space, trying to really work out, well, what is it that's no longer working and what is needed to make those changes? Because it's not an easy, but it is a fruitful road. I am definitely here to tell you that. And what I have discovered through witnessing these stories is that often the change that is needed or what burnout is screaming out to let them know is sometimes it's that I'm understimulated. My work has never or no longer is aligned with what I need, what I value, my morals, maybe. I even and not that I'll break confidentiality, but I'm just the visual of the clients were and those sessions where we discovered those connections and how powerful that was when they listened and understood and how that shifted their relationship with burnout, one from I failed or something's wrong with me to, oh, I'm feeling burnt out because I'm in a situation that isn't working for me anymore. And some of the other, it can be and often is that I'm working under a leader that is toxic, that I don't feel safe enough to be around, to assert my needs. My needs are not getting met enough here. Or the system itself is no longer workable. And sometimes it's the sheer workload that we're carrying and is expected of us, or, and sometimes both expected from ourselves. Uh, yeah, that the load isn't sustainable. So there's many, when people slow down enough and are guided and know to explore what burnout is trying to tell them, so they, you know, are able to really hear and listen, accept, acknowledge, and accommodate, that they're able then to drop. And I've noticed this, that they'll say, look, I no longer am scared of it, or I'm no longer judging myself for being burnt out, and they feel more room to be able to move forward, which is really beautiful to see. So I get to bear witness to that, which is beautiful. In my own story of burnout, and before burnout screamed so loud to me that I was forced to stop work, my body could no longer function. I I resisted the burnout. I wasn't listening. I just kept pushing through. And I think a lot of that was because of this negative relationship, not with burnout, but with myself in general, that well, everybody else is able to cope, so why can't I? I just need to work harder, do more. So it's definitely living in that sort of anxiety, I think, relationship with burnout, which I didn't even know it was burnout. I knew I wasn't well. I knew I was highly anxious and most likely depressed, but I avoided that because I didn't want to be that person who wasn't coping. So I was just madly trying to find ways in which to either, well, I suppose in a way I wasn't ignoring, I was also trying to fix by changing the work I do. Yeah, there was lots of things that I was doing, but I think part of me was definitely really ignoring the louder messages. And when my body shut down, uh, I literally had time to listen. And I also made it a point that, well, this is the time to do something about it. I mean, I was 41 and I was kind of like, lived half my life, let's, and cycled, which I now know was often burnout, chronic stress, uh, but often perpetuated into sort of depressive episodes and lots of anxiety. Um, I digress, but what I decided to do is really listen, really understand what was going on, really know what burnout, which I came to realize it was burnout as well as some depression and also some other things. I talked about in earlier episodes, episode 1, 6 and 12, I think. But I came to listen and really understand that what burnout was teaching me is that my behavioral patterns of perfectionism were no longer serving me. My people pleasing probably didn't ever serve me. People pleasing was certainly not serving me in my relationships. And the work environment and how I was working was no longer servicing me. So learning to accommodate, to accept that I was not well and really listen to what my unwellness was teaching me, the burnout was teaching me, and then setting forth to unlearn and make the changes and learn ways to be that was more aligned with who I am, what I need, my true self. So going back to Dr. Dina Glouberman's words, I really saw burnout. For me, the teaching was that you're disconnected from yourself. You have no, this was what I was saying to myself, you have no idea who you are and what you want. And that was a bit scary at 41. And I know I'm not alone with that. A lot of us have like, who the hell are we? And what's our purpose? What's our meaning? And I don't think I've ever really known. I've always been someone who's led, and I know other people are saying, led by cultural norms or expectations of what I feel like is the right thing to do rather than what do I want to do? So that was my lesson. That's what burnout taught me. And that is the lesson I continue to follow and do my best with. Hmm.
Hey there. I promise you this is just a short break from your podcast viewing or listening. Thank you, by the way, for tuning in to let you know where all of this started. Back in my burnout height, I kept a journal. And the reason I kept a journal, and I never kept a journal before, well, I kept a diary as a teenager, but only for a short while. But the reason why I chose to journal is because I realized how disconnected I had become from myself and I really wanted to connect in. So I used writing as the way in which to do that. And I ended up publishing just myself these journal entries up on a blog and had a few followers and people who really found it helpful that I shared my very raw experiences, which later down the track, as I improved, I decided to put it into a book, which, just bear with me, it's just up here on my shelf, proudly. It's called Nothing Left to Give, A Psychologist's Path Back from Burnout, and basically is the collection of all the journal entries I kept for around a year. So from around December, January 2020, 20 to 21 to January the following year, so 2022. Yeah, so it's all in there. And also, besides the raw feelings, thoughts, everything that was coming up, lots of perfectionism, lots of self-sabotage, self-sacrifice, my journey into therapy, so many things are in there. And I've also included some of the all the wellness practices that often as I would journal, I would connect with, from my own knowledge and wisdom, being a psychologist, to help support me out of and beyond the burnout. I also was collecting a lot of knowledge and wisdom and skills at the time through the therapy I went into and did, and also just a lot of reading, listening to podcasts,
and just stuff like that, building my resources. So it's all in there. And it's in ebook as well as paperback, just not audio yet. I'd love that. And it's 25.99 Australian, and for the ebook, $11.99 Australian. You can purchase it on Amazon in either of those forms. And please let me know if you do purchase it, read it. I'd love to hear from you, to see what it has meant to you. But back to your episode. Take care of you. I just want to share a little bit more about Dr. Dina Goldman's book, just a few pearlers. There's so many. You'll see, I'm a highlighter. I'm not sure if anyone else highlights books out there that you read for your own self-development or even for your work with whatever you do for a living, or maybe, with parenting books, or even like if you're a dog parent like me, dog parenting books. But yeah, anyway, I'm a highlighter. So there's so many things that I highlighted that are awesome in this book, but there's just 3 points I want to share with you at the moment. And I'm going to refer to my notes just so I can clearly articulate her words. So Dr. Dina Glouberman talks about burnout as a doorway to a different life. That idea spoke so deeply to me. I read this book post burnout, so I'm in the growing from, and certainly preventing from it occurring again. And doorway to a different life. It just even, I get the goosies with, it's like this light radiating from the heart. My life is so different now. I mean, sometimes I do mourn the life that was, particularly the things that life brought that this current life doesn't bring. And really, really is quite trivial, because, yeah, this doorway to a different life has me connected to my true self. It has me working and living in a way that is more connected. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not about that. I'm not always aligned with that. No one is. But the fact is that it's in my awareness, and I'm living according to my true self as best I can, whereas before I was led by something else. So I really love what Dr. Goldman says there, a doorway to a different life. So that's a pretty cool way to think about burnout. What a great narrative, what a great reframe. Burnout rather than illness that we have to fix and get rid of. Burnout as a doorway to a different life. Like, woo, that might be scary too, because like I didn't have an idea of what my life was going to look like when my body shut down. I had no freaking clue. That brought up a lot of anxiety. Again, getting help is very important there. It's not so easy to, even when we reframe burnout, to be okay with that new way of looking at it. So do get help and support with that. Another thing I wanted to share that she shares is that she says burnout is the soul's cry for a new way of being, not just the end of coping, but the beginning of transformation. Because often I have clients come to me and goes, like, I'm just not able to cope, which is definitely their reality. Well, their reality. Things have become so overwhelming. The level of their burnout is so high that, yeah, they're drowning. Like, they're no longer surviving, they're drowning. So yeah, that they're not coping. But sometimes that can bring up that failure story and guilt and shame around burnout and experiencing it, that I should be able to cope. That I remember the language I was using. I'm a psychologist. I know what to do to look after my health, and here I am burnt out. Oh my God, I can't cope, like, so yeah, it can feed that story. But I love what she says there, that beginning of a transformation kind of links into that doorway to a new life. Again, can be scary. So getting help in this transition is so paramount. And the last one I want to share is she calls it joy. Not because it's easy, but because it points us to the truth. So just to remember, just to remind you, that's the word, the joy of burnout. So she titled the book that, The Joy of Burnout. And like when I was like, I have to read this book. I don't think I would have picked up this book, or maybe I would have in my burnout. I think I probably would have. but I certainly would have been like, well, there's no joy in this at the time. But anyway, as someone who's been through it, I was like, oh no, I can certainly see that joy, but not joy in the sense of elation and excitement and around burnout, but more that it points us to the truth and living according to my true self more so than ever did. Probably the last time I was really true to myself was probably when I was 5. Yeah. Um, maybe a little bit older. But anyway, that it does feel joyful. I feel joy more now than what I did before. I don't think, and a lot of people experience this in their burnout, that I don't feel joy anymore. That burnout does lead us to, yeah, often not feel that anymore. So really feel that transformation and walking through that door and into a new life. Yeah, the joy of burnout. It's in that other side that we connect with joy again when we're connected to ourselves. So pretty cool things to think about. Okay, so in true Shannon style, I am very much reflective, and evidence base is there that reflective practice is really, really important to burnout recovery and growth, and really to our health and well-being in general. So I have a few reflective questions just to prompt you and to take away, or do now. Pause this listening if you can and work through these one step at a time, or keep for later to write in your journal or type in your journal, whichever you do. But I do really encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what you've learnt today. So here's the questions. What if your burnout isn't a sign that you are broken, but a message that you've had outgrown something? What if your exhaustion is a whisper that your body and mind are no longer willing to betray what you truly need? What would it look like to stop resisting burnout and start befriending it? If you could stop the cycle of fear, control, and avoidance towards burnout, what might emerge in its place? So some reflective questions there to reflect on. Before we wrap up today, I just want to share some messages of compassion and hope. My first message is burnout is painful, but it's also purposeful. It's a signal, not a sentence. This next message is one that's very, very true to my heart, that you don't have to go back to who you were. This is an opportunity to go forth and meet who you really are. And my last message of compassion and hope is that there is wisdom in that fatigue of burnout. There is also clarity in that collapse. If, like me, your burnout has led to that. And there is joy on the other side, and not the surface level happiness, but the really deep seated joy of connection with self and connection with others and your life. And if it's safe for you to do so, I encourage you to either close your eyes or fix your eyes on a spot in front of you. Place a hand on your heart and focus on that breath, and say gently to yourself, I hear you. I am listening. I'm not going to abandon you anymore. That right there is the beginning of a new relationship with burnout. Thank you so much for partaking, engaging, listening, watching this episode. I really appreciate it and look forward to hearing your comments on this episode and what came from it for you. Take care of you. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me on Midlife Reclaimed. I am Shannon A. Swales, and I hope the conversation today sparks some ideas, helps support you along your way in reclaiming your midlife. Now, if you'd like to stay connected, and we encourage you to do so, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and stay in contact with Midlife Reclaimed episodes. You can also follow us on social media under Shannon A. Swales. And also, if you want to dive deeper into this and be part of a community, check out our Midlife Reclaimed membership. The link is in the show notes. Now, before you go, please remember that if you're feeling overwhelmed, distressed, seek professional support. This podcast, whilst delivers valuable content, it is general in nature, is not a replacement for therapist-client relationships. So we, from the bottom of our heart, encourage you to seek that support. We're not meant to do this alone. Let's reclaim our midlife together, one courageous, bold step at a time. Take care of you. Bye for now.